So now we're going to examine the welfare effects of trade. Who wins and loses when two countries are opened up to trade? We've got the same example we had in the previous video with Japan exporting motorbikes to the US. Now we're going to analyse the welfare effects in terms of consumer and producer surplus. As you might recall, consumer surplus comes from looking at the demand curve and the current price. It is the area above the current price and below the demand curve. The demand curve is a schedule which indicates how much people are willing to pay for goods. If this price was 40, you can see according to the schedule that some people would be willing to pay 60. These people are actually consuming at the current price, and they're gaining the $20 that they're not spending in excess. So all of these people above the price are gaining. Therefore, the area under the curve and above the price is the consumer surplus. Equally, if we look at the supply curve and the current price, the area below the price and above the supply curve is the producer surplus. Some producers are willing to accept lower than the current price. However, they're getting the price that is in the market and gaining because of it. Therefore, this area is their gain. So we've got two prices that we're considering. We've got the original domestic price at $700 and $2,000 in the US. And then we've got the world price, which occurs after trade. So we're going to look at two scenarios: before trade, when the two countries are at the domestic price, and after trade, when we're looking at the world price. What groups are going to be affected by this trade? The two main groups we're going to look at is consumers and producers in both countries. So let's start with Japan, Japanese producers and consumers, and we also have to consider US producers and consumers. So starting with Japan, before trade, at the domestic price of $700, what is their consumer surplus? Here's the demand curve, here's the current domestic price. So their surplus would be the area of this triangle. You might be able to see that it's V plus X plus Y. What about the producers? The producers are the areas that are above the supply curve and below the price. If this is a W, then their surplus will be U plus W, because it's going to be this triangle here. You can see the equivalent there. Okay. What about before trade in the US? The domestic price is at $2,000. The consumer surplus would be the area above the price and below the demand curve, which is area C. The producer surplus would be the area below the price and above the supply curve, which is areas A and D. So as we said, after trade, what happens is that the price in Japan goes up to the world price of $1,000. And in the US, it decreases to the world price of $1,000. Without even doing this analysis, you're going to probably realize that producers in the US are going to lose because now they have to sell at a lower price, whereas consumers in the US are going to win because they can buy the motorbikes at a lower price. In Japan, on the other hand, suppliers are going to get a higher price for their product, and consumers are going to lose because they're going to have to pay $1,000 rather than $700. But let's do this a little bit more technically by looking at the consumer and producer surplus at the new world price. So at the new world price of $1,000, the consumer surplus is now only going to be area V. The net change is therefore going to be a loss of X and Y. So we write that in as negatives. Producers, however, are going to gain. They're going to now have this whole triangle here. So the area under the price and above the supply curve. So they're going to have X plus Y plus Z plus U plus W. So they're going to gain. They've already got U and W before trade. So they're going to gain X plus Y plus Z. Now we can look at the net effect in Japan. The producers have gained X, Y, and Z, but the consumers have lost X and Y. If we balance these off, we can see that Japan overall has gained area Z. So this little triangle here is its net gain from trade. Even though some groups have lost and some groups have won, overall Japan is still better off. How about in the US? At the new world price, consumers are going to be better off. They're going to have a larger consumer surplus. So rather than just having area C, they're going to have area C, A, and B. Let's write that in our table. So rather than having C, they're going to have C plus A plus B. So their net gain is going to be plus A and plus B. What about producers? Well, unfortunately, they're going to be worse off. They're going to be getting a lower price. So rather than getting D and A, which they had at 2000, they're now only getting area D. Okay. So that's going to be a loss of negative A. So what's the net effect in the US? Well, in the US, they're going to lose A, but they're going to gain A and B. So the net effect is going to be plus B, which is this triangle here. Now what you're going to find is that the world is going to gain area M and N. In reality, the consumer surplus in the international market is going to be the US gain B, whereas the surplus for the suppliers is going to be the gain in Japan of area Z. So the creation of the new market reflects the fact that both of these countries are gaining from trade, and the net world gain from trade is going to be area Z and area B. This is why we call trade a positive sum gain.